Hey friends, welcome back to Grand Adventure. I'm your host, Mark Guido, and we're spending this week in beautiful Newport, Rhode Island. So come along. This episode of Grand Adventure is sponsored by eTrailer.com, where you'll find thousands of products for RVing, towing, camping, outdoor recreation, vehicles, boating, and more. Use the link down below in the video description to shop eTrailer with Grand Adventure. At only 37 miles wide by 48 miles long, Rhode Island is the smallest U.S. state by area and the 7th least populous with slightly fewer than 1.1 million residents. Thanks to its diminutive size, however, it's the second most densely populated state, behind only New Jersey. Rhode Island's official nickname is the Ocean State, a reference to its nearly 400 miles of coastline and the large bays and inlets that make up about 14% of the state's total area. The nautical nature of Rhode Island's geography pervades its culture, and Newport is sometimes referred to as the sailing capital of the world. English settlers began arriving here in the early 17th century. Rhode Island was unique among the 13 British colonies in having been founded by a refugee, Roger Williams, who fled religious persecution in the Massachusetts Bay Colony to establish a haven for religious liberty. He founded Providence in 1636 on land purchased from local tribes, creating the first settlement in North America with an explicitly secular government. Benedict Arnold was elected as the first governor. Founded in 1639, the city of Newport sits along the eastern shoreline of Narragansett Bay on the western side of Aquidneck Island, the largest of more than 30 islands within the bay. Also home to the municipalities of Middletown and Portsmouth, Aquidneck Island is also known historically as Rhode Island, giving the state its name. Newport quickly became the Rhode Island colony's most important port. Whaling became one of the town's leading industries and made Newport a wealthy, prominent community. It remains so today, and the current economy now relies heavily upon tourism. There are enticing historic neighborhoods located all across Newport, but the one that draws the most attention is the waterfront district downtown. Here, places like Bowen's Wharf bustle with visitors seeking boutiques and fine restaurants with alfresco dining. If you can't find something to eat or drink around here, there's absolutely something wrong with you. I had to try it, and it was positively wonderful. Beginning in the mid-19th century, wealthy southern planters seeking to escape the heat began to build summer cottages on Bellevue Avenue. Around the middle of the century, wealthy northerners, such as the Wetmore family, began construction on larger mansions nearby and along Ocean Drive. Most of these early families made a substantial part of their fortunes in the old China trade. By the turn of the 20th century, many of the nation's wealthiest families were summering in Newport, including the Vanderbilts, Astors, and the Widener family, who constructed the largest mansions that they called cottages. They resided in Newport for only a brief summer social season in grand mansions with elaborate receiving rooms, dining rooms, music rooms, and ballrooms, but with few bedrooms, since the guests were expected to have cottages of their own. Many of these mansions remain private homes even today, while some have become facilities for Salve Regina University, and others have been restored by the Preservation Society and opened for public tours. The most famous of these, the Breakers, is a palatial 70-room, 138,000 square foot Gilded Age mansion, built between 1893 and 1895 as a summer residence for Cornelius Vanderbilt II. The footprint of the house alone covers approximately 1 full acre of the 14-acre estate on the cliffs overlooking Eastern Bay of the Atlantic Ocean. The designers created an interior using marble imported from Italy and Africa, and rare woods and mosaics from countries around the world. It was the largest, most opulent house in the Newport area upon its completion in 1895. In 1948, Vanderbilt's youngest daughter Gladys leased the high-maintenance property to the Preservation Society of Newport County for $1 per year. The Preservation Society bought the Breakers and approximately 90% of its furnishings in 1972 for $365,000. We've toured many of Newport's mansions decades ago, and would have done so again this visit were it not for the Preservation Society's prohibition on filming the interiors for you. The Cliff Walk is one of the most popular attractions in Newport, a 3.5-mile public access walkway bordering the shoreline and passing behind many of the city's waterfront mansions. It has been designated a National Recreation Trail. Built between 1879 and 1881, the Newport Casino was not actually a betting casino, but a social club for wealthy Newport cottage owners. It included courts for both lawn tennis and court tennis, facilities for other games such as squash and lawn bowling, club rooms for reading, socializing, card playing, and billiards, shops, and a convertible theater and ballroom. It became a center of Newport's social life during the Gilded Age through the 1920s. The casino has housed the International Tennis Hall of Fame since 1954. When we come right back, following a quick ad break, we'll share our Newport campground and some historic sites on both the Aquidneck and Jamestown Islands, including lighthouses and forts, so stay tuned. Whether you need products for your RV, boat, trailer, vehicle, hunting and fishing, off-roading, and more, our video sponsor eTrailer has you covered. Best of all, you'll find over 100 US-based enthusiast customer service reps ready to help via phone, chat, or email, both before and after the sale. These folks have used themselves the products that you're shopping for, and you won't find a more knowledgeable team anywhere to help you with your outdoor project. Click the link down below in the video description to shopetrailer.com with Grand Adventure. Rhode Island is something of a tiny desert of RV camping. There are few RV campgrounds in the state to begin with, and they're all wildly expensive. Most of these, however, are limited to seasonal campers only and don't accommodate short-term stays. The few state parks that provide overnight camping, like Charlestown Beachway, charge out-of-state campers double the rate that they charge state residents. But we wanted to check the box on Rhode Island. We found only 2 overnight RV campgrounds on Aquidneck Island that take overnight visitors, and we're staying in the one closest to Newport, Meadowlark RV and Mobile Home Park. The other, further away in Portsmouth, charges rates ranging from $110 to $140 per night for a full hookup campsite, despite poor reviews that we've heard from our viewers. We're located this week less than 3 miles from Newport's downtown waterfront. Meadowlark's full hookup sites were already full even when we booked this past spring, occupied primarily by seasonal campers all crammed together. So we're out back in an electric-only 30-amp grass campsite for $75 per night midweek and $85 per night on the weekend. We don't have much more space here than the full hookup sites offer, but at least we're preserving our dignity by not paying well north of $100 per night. Right next door to our campground on Prospect Avenue, Boyd's Windmill, also known as Boyd's Wind Grist Mill, is a fascinating historic smock mill built in 1810. The mill is a timber frame structure, octagonal in shape and about 30 feet tall, with a rotating cap powered by 8 vanes with canvas sheets. It originally had 4 common sails, but 4 more were later added. The grindstones in the middle of the mill were carved from Fall River granite. The upper one, which is connected to the power mechanisms, rotates 6 times for each turn of the mill's main shaft. In 1916, Benjamin Boyd removed the original vanes and powered the mill using a gasoline engine. It is one of only 2 historic windmills to survive on Aquidneck Island out of what was estimated to be more than 30 at one time. The windmill is open to the public on Sunday afternoons in July, August, and September. This part of southern New England is also known for its stone rows. When you're an 18th century farmer cultivating ground that's positively littered with rocks, you collect and make good use of them by marking your property boundary. With its maritime culture, it should come as no surprise that Rhode Island is famed for its seafood. Dining in Rhode Island, however, has its own nomenclature. They're not called subs in Rhode Island, they're grinders. Stuffed clams are stuffies. Calling soda tonic is more of a Boston thing, but that spills over here too. Rhode Island also has unique food items. Johnny cakes are like pancakes, but made with unleavened cornmeal. Crispy battered rings and tentacles of calamari get a flavor boost in Rhode Island from a quick toss with garlic, butter, and the vinegary kick of pickled cherry peppers. Clam chowder is unique in Rhode Island too. Unlike creamy New England chowder or the tomato-based Manhattan version, Rhode Island clam chowder has a clear broth, putting all of the focus on Rhode Island's native quahogs. Big chunks of tender potatoes are traditionally sautéed with onions and salt pork. Clams, clam juice, herbs, and water are later added and the salt pork removed, yielding this delicious and hearty meal. It's the type of clam chowder I grew up with and prefer. These little dough balls straight from heaven are called clam fritters elsewhere in southern New England, but in Rhode Island, they're known as clam cakes. A savory dough is stuffed with diced quahogs and fried crispy on the outside, soft on the inside. Perfect for dunking in your chowder. Just south of downtown, on the shores of Newport Harbor, Fort Adams State Park hosts both the Newport Folk Festival and the Newport Jazz Festival. We first told you about Admiral Oliver Hazard Perry in our History of Lake Erie from our first destination stop this season in Erie, Pennsylvania. The SSV Oliver Hazard Perry, a 207-foot, three-masted square-rigged tall ship, is docked at Fort Adams State Park. It's the largest civilian sail training vessel in the United States. The state park is named for Fort Adams, a 20-acre coastal fortification that was active from 1799 through the first half of the 20th century. The fort is named for President John Adams, who was in office at the time of its founding. The current Fort Adams was built between 1824 and 1857 under the third system of coastal forts to protect East Passage and the Narragansett Bay, and remained an active U.S. Army installation until 1950. In the United States, it is rivaled in size only by Fort Monroe in Hampton, Virginia, and Fort Jefferson on the Dry Tortugas in Florida. A report of 1854 stated that Fort Adams was armed with a 132-pounder Seacoast guns, 57 24-pounder Seacoast guns, and 43 24-pounder flank howitzers. The fort's armament was modernized in the 1870s with rifled cannon, a new technology at that time, and again in the 20th century with breech-loading guns and anti-aircraft artillery. But no shot was ever fired in conflict. In 1953, the U.S. Army transferred ownership of Fort Adams to the U.S. Navy, which still uses some of the nearby grounds for family housing. President Dwight Eisenhower lived at the former commanding officers' quarters, now called the Eisenhower House, during his summer vacations in Newport in 1958 and 1960. Immediately following another quick ad break to pay the bills, we'll visit Fort Wetherill on the opposite side of East Passage in Jamestown, along with some local historic lighthouses, take a relaxing coastal hike in a local wildlife refuge, and more, so stay tuned. On Connecticut Island, guarding the strategic East Passage in the Narragansett Bay across from Fort Adams, was Fort Wetherill. Known earlier during the American Revolutionary War as Fort Dumpling, Fort Wetherill was deactivated and turned over to the state of Rhode Island after World War II, and is now operated as a 51-acre state park. Connecticut Island is the second largest island in Narragansett Bay, connected on the east to Newport on Aquidneck Island by the Newport Bridge, and on the west to North Kingstown on the mainland via the Jamestown-Verrazano Bridge. The main span of the Newport Bridge is 1,601 feet, making it the longest suspension bridge in New England. Jamestown is situated almost entirely on Connecticut Island, although the town also includes the uninhabited Dutch and Gould Islands. It was named for James, Duke of York, who became King James II in 1685. Jamestown was a bustling summer destination in the early 1900s, and it had 9 hotels in 1903. The golden age of large resort hotels was brief, however, in Jamestown and elsewhere, and patronage rapidly declined in the 1920s. The current Beavertail Lighthouse was built in 1856 at the southernmost point of Connecticut Island to mark the entrance to Narragansett Bay. Today's 64-foot tower lies on a site where beacons have stood since the early 18th century, the third oldest lighthouse site in the United States. A wooden tower was first built here in 1749, known at the time as Newport Light. A fire was lit at the top of the tower, as was common for the time. 4 years later, it burned down and was replaced by a stone tower. British sailors retreating from Newport near the end of the American Revolutionary War in 1779 left a trail of destruction behind them, including burning the lighthouse and removing the optics, which left the light dark for the rest of the war. In 1856, the existing tower was replaced with this current tower, made of granite, which is 10 feet square and 64 feet from ground to beacon. The Aquidneck Island side of the Narragansett Bay entrance is marked by Castle Hill Lighthouse, an active aid to navigation completed in 1890 on property formerly belonging to the naturalist, oceanographer, and zoologist Alexander Agassiz of Harvard University. Agassiz sold the land to the United States government for the lighthouse for $1. His mansion on the property, commissioned in 1874, is now an inn. Visiting Rhode Island also provides me with the opportunity to remember Yawgoo Valley, the smallest mountain I've ever skied. They claim an imposing vertical drop of 245 feet, but a quick check of a topo map shows the true vertical to be around 170 feet. It's flat as a pancake. Hurricane Ernesto is turning well offshore out in the Atlantic during a portion of our week in Newport. Although it's having little impact upon our weather, the ocean swells generated by the storm are making for some impressive surf along the shoreline. Following one quick final ad break, we'll hike the serene majesty of Sachuest Point National Wildlife Reserve, so stay tuned. Sachuest Point is a national wildlife refuge in the southeasternmost part of Aquidneck Island, in Middletown, a mere 5 minutes from our campground. It's been a brutally stressful work week, so hiking the oceanfront trails here is just the ticket to unwind late on a Friday afternoon. From the mid-1600s to the early 1900s, Sachuest Point was used for farming and sheep grazing, then a horse racing area, and later a naval communication site and rifle range. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service now maintains facilities on this peninsula between the Sakonnet River and Rhode Island Sound. In 1970, a 70-acre donation from the Audubon Society of Rhode Island led to the establishment of the refuge. Along with land transfers from the Navy, the refuge now totals 242 acres that provide an important stopover and wintering area for migratory birds. It is visited by only 65,000 people each year, despite its close proximity to bustling Newport. From salt marsh and beach strand habitats to upland shrub-dominated lands, the refuge supports over 200 bird species, with such notable occasional visitors such as peregrine falcon, northern harrier, and the snowy owl. There are nearly 3 miles of trail here in 2 loops, one extending south from the visitor center and the other heading north. I'm hiking both in their entirety, and then some. Sachuest Point National Wildlife Refuge is renowned for its fantastic saltwater fishing and has an active night fishing permit system. About 200 million years ago, when the supercontinent Pangaea split, the granite of the Price Neck Formation here actually originated in Africa. After the work week that I had, this late afternoon and early evening spent at Sachuest Point was exactly what the doctor ordered. So we hope that you've enjoyed visiting the Newport, Rhode Island area with us. Now, coming up next week, we're going to be returning to my old stomping grounds where I grew up in southeastern Connecticut. So if you're not yet a grand adventurer, there is no better time than right now for you to go smash that little subscribe button right down there in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and ring that notification bell to be sure that you never miss an episode of Grand Adventure, which we premiere every Wednesday evening right here. We'd be honored if you shared the channel with your friends, family, and on social media. Understand that it is extremely important to us that if you liked this episode, please be sure to give us a big thumbs up down below. And while you're down below, that's where you're going to find the comment section where we always love to hear from you each and every week. So until next week from southeastern Connecticut, please remember life is nothing but a grand adventure. We'll see you then.